All right, let's dig in to how AI can save you time, which is probably why you're actually here. Up to this point, it's probably gone pretty quick. It's hopefully been interesting, but the crux of artificial intelligence to you as a teacher is why is it useful? What can it do for me? How can it help kids learn? That's where we're going to hit now. Before we dig into the actual things it can do for you, a few questions I want you to consider to make this even more useful. One, what parts of your job are not central to you actually being human and doing, but are more repetitive? Can the AI do? What pieces do you want to hold on to then as the human part of you that you want to keep away from AI or that it can't do that you actually want to focus on? That's the most special or art part of teaching. Kind of said that, right? What's human about you? What part is unique that makes the most difference as you being in the room with the kids, helping them focus and grow and learn? And then which of these things can AI just make a good draft of to get you started and make that blank page feeling go away to help you save time, which is the most valuable resource to every teacher because there's never enough of it. That plate always gets more full. How can we make the plate a little less full and make your life easier? All right, thing number one it can do, it can draft a lesson plan. Now, if you've got core curriculum to use, you should be using that as your lesson plan. And we'll get into how it can tweak that and change it later. But if you're going to have it do lesson plans, because maybe it's a weird day, it's a shortened day, it's before the holidays, you got done early, something else you want to cover, or you've got like a specialist section where you're doing unique content the kids are picking, genius hours, or you're a specialist, or just a non-core teacher, it does a pretty good job drafting a lesson plan for you. No, it won't be perfect, but gets you pretty close there. You can ask it to tie in standards, and you can just tweak it and build off of that. Number two, it can score essays based on a rubric you give it. It can also give feedback on those essays. You could do without a rubric, but then it's going to give you randomized different results on it, and it's not very consistent. And that's the plus to this. If you as a teacher are grading essays or papers or book reports, whatever it might be, from the first one you do to the 29th or 150th, your consistency is going to lag. Maybe it was just me, but the first one to the last one over days, sometimes they went up, sometimes they went down, and how harshly I graded them for different reasons. The AI won't do that. It's got a rubric to grade and a reason for it. It'll grade it consistently from the first to the last, and it'll tell you why it's doing those grading to give feedback to work with. You may still have to tweak, but it'll be much faster and much more consistent for the kids and for you to do it. And we know research says timely feedback is key for kids to learn and grow and do something with it. And since you need that rubric to grade the essays fairly, you can also ask ChatGPT or any other AI to build the rubric for you. They usually have a pretty good starting point for those. Especially if you give it a good enough prompt saying, I want you to include this, 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 and this in the rubric. Give me a single point rubric. Give me a 4-point scale. Give me whatever you want. It can cover those kind of rubrics for you and give you that starting point. The next thing it can do, it can suggest a breakdown of any topic you want to teach into slides and recommendations for the images that should go on those slides to make it engaging. CuriPod is an exact example I'm linking here that'll actually build an entire presentation for you on a topic of your choice. Now note that it's not fully free. It's a freemium tool. So you get 5 slide decks if you use CuriPod, and you can pay to upgrade to get more, but you can delete one, build one, delete one, and kind of reuse them that way. So you can work the system for you. And again, if you have content, use that from your curriculum. But if you don't, it's kind of a fun one to play around with, which I'm going to ask you to do later anyway. So when you look at not the video, but the attached slides, or the link slides, check this one out, or it's one you can check out. Then next, It can also draft questions for your tests, quizzes, review, self-assessments. When I did this originally, based on my old chemistry content I used to teach, the questions themselves weren't bad. They're pretty close like you get for a textbook question, but then I asked them to do them at a higher DOK or depth of knowledge level. I got much better questions that would actually do a really good job showing what the students learned and needed minimal tweaking. However, and we'll come back to this in a future session, it also explained to me which questions were at which DOK level. That was good. But also told me some of them were at DOK level 5, which isn't a thing. It's not real at all. It kind of made it up or pulled it from fake internet content. So check what they give you, check the answers. One of the tools I'll link to later gave me wrong answers for some of my quiz questions. So again, good draft, don't take them for full truth. Number 6, kind of just did, you can adjust those depth of knowledge on any question. Ones it writes, ones you've written. They're so much better when you raise them up and don't make them just basic level recall questions. So take anything you're doing, ask the AI to level it up, either through Bloom's or any other way, add other pieces to it, and it'll make it a better product overall. Number 7, it can make newsletters. So you can have it just spit out a weekly or monthly newsletter for you automatically. It'll do an okay job, but you'll probably have better results if you input a few you've done before and ask for one in the same style, but just hit the bullet points or the topics you want to cover in this one, and it'll get you probably 90+% of the way there. You can just tweak, saving you time rather than rewriting the entire newsletter every week or however often you do it. And things you have to write often that are not always fun or easy to do would be parent email responses. Now, I would never just take an email reply that an AI tool gave me and send it right back to the parent without checking what's in there and making sure the tone is appropriate. But sometimes it may produce a much better, do a better job of having the correct tone for a parent, especially if you ask it to do it while you're heated up from what the parent said to you. It'll be much more even-keeled and give a more appropriate response than you might have. You can either take as is or tweak as needed to reply to them. It might be a slightly different tone of voice that makes sense if parents are not understanding you in a back and forth. Now, this one won't apply for all of you, but it can actually write a pretty darn good IEP. Again, you have to check it carefully. I'm going to sound like a dead horse over that, but if you put in the proper information, enough details about the kid without using their name, ideally, actually especially, and the goal you want, it'll make a pretty darn good draft. You can just tweak it. Same idea on the normal teacher side. If you, not that sped teachers are abnormal, it came out wrong. On a teacher side who doesn't write IEPs, not a sped teacher, you can ask it for ideas of how to accommodate students and do things in the classroom to meet IEP needs if you have the specific details within the IEP. Number 10, does a pretty darn good idea for finding a bunch of ideas for projects. And in my mind, it's even better to ask it to tie in critical thinking or real world connections or blended learning actions they can take and make them more engaging, kind of like our goals we're shooting for, you'll ask for. Number 11, it can adjust the reading level of assignments and passages. I think this one is key. Now, I won't click on them here in the video. I'll let you do that when you go through the slides. But I have an original article here written for I think a 7th grade level for a science article that they might be reading in class. I then dropped it down to a 4th grade reading level and to a 10th grade reading level. So you could easily adjust. It took me 3 minutes to have it change the language to fit that. If you know who your struggling readers are, you can give them that way, or you can give them choice saying, hey, try this one. If it's too easy, try the lower one, or try this other one. If it's too hard, try this one. The content or the intent of the article is still all the same. The idea is still all there. And if you want, you could still have it include key vocab. Say, when you change a reading level for this, ensure to include terms A, B, and C in all of them. It'll still do that. And that's a really easy way to help out kids who are either struggling or who are bored by it give them a little more challenge in their reading. Number 12, spinning off that differentiation piece, you can ask for just general ways of differentiating a lesson. So we talked about adding like critical thinking and real world learning, but also just give you general ideas. If you input a summary of what you're doing for your lesson, and you can ask for like what kind of modifications, you can just ask generally for what kind of modifications can I make? Or you can say, hey, I'm struggling with having this or doing more of this or connecting it to something. It'll do a good job and spit out a lot of ideas, some of which you want to use, some you won't in the next lesson or in that lesson going forward. 13, explain complicated topics in age appropriate levels. So I thought actually pretty good about doing this in chemistry, which is a complicated, weird topic for many kids. So like creating metaphors, using language and examples at the right age does a pretty good job of. If it doesn't, you can always have it regenerate the response multiple times until you get one you do like. But even the ones I did do a pretty good job of, I'd sometimes fail live. I could always pop it in here. Or it makes sense for a lot of kids, but not for everyone. You can try and even have it like say, do a metaphor around this topic that this kid is struggling with, or have it build a metaphor around a topic that the struggling kid is interested in. That gives them a focus, some engagement, and a real world connection for them on these topics that are tricky. All right, 14. Annoying subplans can be written mostly by the AI, and you can just tweak it, especially if you got a template to use. Say this, tell them roughly what they're going to be working on. It'll draft it for you, and you can just change it to fit what you need. Especially this comes in handy if you get sick last minute, or you have a kid who calls in and there's not much time to do this. You can get you a pretty darn good draft to just tweak and do it in a few minutes rather than building a full one out when you're gone in advance. 15, it can give you a lot of ideas for choice boards. They're also called tic-tac-toe boards or learning menus if you're not familiar with them. Basically gives a way for kids to get voice and choice in what they're doing and let them still practice or show their knowledge on different things, but they can choose which things within a menu of options. AI tools can give you a whole bunch of different ways for them to do it. You can kind of put them into a choice board rather than you having to come up with all of them or do a lot of Googling. It'll kind of amalgamate all those things together for you. Is that a word? Put them all together for you. 16, student recommendation letters. Now, this won't matter much for those of you who are not teaching high school, or maybe if you're coaching, it would be. But basically, if you enter in the kid's resume or things you know about the student or what they want in the letter, you'll get a pretty darn good starting draft of a recommendation letter from the AI. You just need to tweak without having to build the whole thing yourself. But as you ask for the right length, they'll give you as many details as you want. The more detailed the prompt, the better the output you'll get. And this saves a ton of time. And 17. So creating a personalized prompts for kids. So this could be as vague and last minute creating 10 writing prompts involving soccer to as specific as having created a student profile in here. Just make sure there's no personal identifying information around the kids in the AI tool, and then asking it to create prompts or ideas or activities to be interested in the specific student. I'll kind of show you an example of how I did that with other ones in a little bit after I get through the last example or two. But if you build in information inside of the tool and say, this, I'd probably pick my handful of kids that are struggling and say, he likes soccer, he likes hunting, he's got 3 dogs, and he's a fan of this, he doesn't like this, kind of build a little profile inside of the system. The AI will pretend to be that person and then can recommend prompts or questions or activities that are likely to interest that kid and gives you a much more personalized approach when going through and supporting them. 18, you can ask the AI for advice on technically anything, although there's probably a few topics I'm pretty sure it won't respond to for ethics reasons. But the most important thing here is to be specific and to check what it's telling you. Within the educational world, I'm thinking some things you could ask for advice on could be ideas to help motivate students, ways to incorporate critical thinking activities in your classroom or lessons, and how to explain those complicated concepts. Okay, those are 18 ways to save you time with AI. I'm going to go show you 2 examples of what I did for those specific student prompts. So here's one that I set up to be I put in the input, you're a 9-year-old girl, you love unicorns, playing soccer, the color purple, wearing dresses and running, mostly based on my own daughter. You like things to be your way, have 3 cats with their names, you dislike all spicy food, but love buns with ketchup. My daughter's actually 4, but that's okay. You can keep adding more information about your students as the year goes on. Just don't put in their own personal information. And I asked it to give 3 prompts. There'd be 3 writing prompts for them. These are what came out. Feel free to pause and read them, but I think they're not bad. Did the same thing for a 9-year-old boy. Put in that he loved playing and watching sports, especially football, and disliked reading. His favorite player was Patrick Mahomes. He's from a small town, liked to play pro sports one day. He's got 2 dogs, both labs, one yellow, their names, another black lab. Again, keep adding information. Go ahead and pause and read these. But in a matter of, once I put the information in a matter of 30 seconds, maybe a minute, I've got 3 focused prompts these kids could use to get them more motivated to do writing than I would have otherwise. Okay, then, last but not least, here are a bunch of AI tools for you to try. I kind of put 4 around the outside that are interesting. I had the one linked earlier. The bottom left one is currently the only one I'm aware of off the top of my head that has no data collected and therefore is safe for kids to use. But I'll put this in the Google form we'll get to in a little bit. Go play around with some of these. Try some things out. Pick 1, 2, 3 of the 18 things we just tried and go make something. Have it do it. Tweak your lessons. Try it out. Click on any of these links and go see what you can get for it. That's your assignment, your learning lesson, your thing to do to explore AI before the next session. Any questions, let me know.